Hi guys, welcome to Evolution Mindset. So today I have a wonderful guest, Joseph Van Zoomeren. So Joseph, thank you for coming on. Please let us know a bit about you and what led you to this pathway.
A registered psychotherapist, so of course I work with people from all walks of life. And so what got me into this line of work? I think it first started when I trained martial arts. I've been training martial arts for about 25 years, so quite a long time. And one of the things I really noticed was people's health and well-being and how it impacts their martial arts and martial ability, but also how much it impacts their life. But then I also started to see their ways of thinking and the way they interact with one another, and then even started to see past trauma and stuff like this, that when people were sparring or having, there was all sorts of things that were coming out of that. And so that got me quite interested in terms of mental health. So I studied mental health at university, got a master's in psychotherapy, and that really started my journey in terms of working with people and the mental health.
So I have a question. How can parents with past trauma quietly affect their kids' lives? And what simple daily habits can help stop the cycle?
Different to say a 5-year-old or 1-year-old, so again, really different in terms of the approach. But one of the things I find working with families, working with teens, young people, but also working with parents, I think one of the big things is, I think parents being aware of their own stuff, right? We've all got our own inheritance, right? Or emotional baggage, however you want to say. Part of it, I think, is becoming aware of what it is for us. Be that through therapy, be that through self-reflective practices, all these different things, I think can really, really help parents. So I think that would be one of the big ones. Another one is, to slow down, which is actually quite hard. I know in our modern life, it's very, very fast, very, very pressured, stress. I see this a lot in our parents that I used to work with. But a lot of it is slowing down and so important. So with young ones, if we're talking 3 to 7 or 8, I quite like doing self-directed play. So that's when parents kind of sit down with the child directs the play. And again, this is amazing. I've seen it in my own life, I've seen it in clients' lives, where the children really bring their, they, in a way that's just beyond words, their inner lives alive and play. And if parents can slow down and spend even 30 minutes a week, like it's not a lot of time, but you can get a real good connection with your kids and stuff like that. With teens, it's a really different ballgame. We already see, like in the brain, that they are in a whole different space. So with young children, they are drawn to their caregiver's voice and what's familiar. Teens are actually the opposite. They're pushing away from what's familiar. Of course, it's very familiar for a lot of parents. It's like, I talk to my adolescent, they won't listen. I talk with them, they just won't listen. So again, I think this is really important for parents, is around finding, be it therapists or professionals, be it coaches, be it mentors, be it other people that they can speak to the teen as well. Like I've had so many parents, I'm like, well, this is, I'm working with, this young person about this. And they're like, oh my God, I've talked about this. Why not me? And I have to explain the thing, right, is that teens are in this place where they're moving away from the family. They're moving towards others. So I think finding a really good network of people, be it aunties, uncles, professionals, all this stuff is really, really helpful for the teens, rather than the parents themselves being more involved. With young kids, it's far more about, we're looking more at parents' involvement in that. And I think big things that are really useful is, of course, connection. We're talking friends, we're talking sports, all sorts of stuff that help with young people as well, from all ages. And we're talking friends, we're talking sports, all sorts of stuff that help with young people as well, from all ages. And mental health, all this sort of stuff. Being healthy, moving, active, all this stuff can really help.
And the other question I would like to ask is, neurodiverse, does punishing them to get over trauma help or hurt? And how can we better the support and strength?
First, I'll define what trauma is, and then it can be a bit more helpful. So trauma is, Gabor Mate described it as an experience that can't be, it's an overwhelming experience, or it's an experience, it's not what happens to you, it's what happens within you in response to what happens to you. Or Peter Levine talks about it as a overwhelming experience that can't be experienced, and it's held in the nervous system. So I think the thing is, we can never push people, through trauma or anything like that.
And I think that goes for general children as well these days. I've got a adult going from teenager to adult, and it just doesn't work. Coaxing, showing them that this is the way that worked for me, that seems like it's not the go-to anymore. It's more like, here are your options. This is something that would be ideal, but it's best for you to do some research and see what's best fits you is the go-to for me now. And is that something that you are resonating as well with the recent?
Yeah, I think, and I find young people very intelligent. Young people are so intelligent. There's so much information. There's just so much. So I think this idea that I really like this idea with teams, that we're a consultant. I really like this idea of consultant. So what does a consultant do? Well, they consult, right? They offer, ideas and options and ways forward, but they don't tell. They're not in this do what I say kind of thing. If you hire a consultant, they're in the space of, well, in my experience, that's not always the wisest way to go about it. There's other way. This is kind of more the consulting role. So I think for teens and adolescents, it's more of you're trying to be more of a consultant. And part of it is with teens that they don't have consequential thinking yet. So they can't think about what the consequences of their actions. So part of my function as a therapist is to go, yeah, you can smoke meth, but I've seen many clients go down that way, and it's not a great way. Or become a professional burglar or a gangster or whatever. Young people, I'm going to, run away and or I'm going to cheat on this test. And again, it's just being kind of like, well, you can do that, but the consequences are pretty severe if you're caught.
Yeah, that is so true.
So holding that space as a consultant, I think the teens can be very, very helpful, because they're very resistant to being told what to do a lot of the time. Because really, they're transitioning into being an adult. And I don't know what your experience is, but my experience is I don't really like being told what to do.
I get that. It's when you become a business owner and entrepreneur, listening to someone telling you what to do as opposed to giving you that option is not exactly kosher. It's like are you telling me what to do in my own business? I'm like, or suggestion sounds nicer. It's not. I guess we've brought up in the rhetoric of do as you've been told and not what you see, and that's always been a conflict. And I guess when we get older, it's best we've now adapted to the idea of being that consultant, and then we've given that better notion to our children. Hence, the generation gets more educated, a bit more open and more approachable. And knowing that pushing hard and giving them high expectations and causing them an early burnout is more frustrating for the parent. And you're seeing more kids rebel, and that's because they're aware that they don't need to, and because of education, and that's rightly fine, because there's other ways that will best suit them. I presume. I'm not a therapist or a psychologist, but from my personal experiences, where I think that trauma is something you feel after someone has, or some experience has happened to you internally and physically. Sometimes it could be one or the other, but sometimes you don't recognize it. I didn't realize I had trauma until I had a bit of a deep think and thought, oh, well, that did affect me, and now I'm shy to do that. And that's the reason why I'm shy, is because I don't want to be, told that you're pathetic, you're useless, and you're like,
Yes. This is really important, because I think this is something that can be kind of misunderstood, is that people might say, well, that happened in the past, it's, it doesn't matter. Or people might come in and go, I've had nothing really traumatic happen to me, so why am I here? So I think this is, some of the experts talk about, it's not the past, it shows up in the present. Like you're saying, it can be in a feeling, it can be in a it often can show up in fear and things like this. You notice, you might look around and go, man, that person, you're saying entrepreneur, that they can go out and start a business. I'm terrified. I'm too afraid. And it's all these small things that, of course, it's very hard, because we only know our own experience. So it's very hard to know what's, I hate the word normal, but what other people are experiencing, right? And I think that's what trauma can do. It can impact how we see the world, and that is very hard. And I think that's why therapy and other things like this can be very helpful, because we're having somebody mirror back what we're. And I have clients that talk and then go, this sounds so dumb, and I know it does, but sometimes they've never voiced it. They've never spoken this thing. They've just held it inside. But once they speak it, they're kind of like, oh God, that's so silly. But they might have believed it their whole life, and that's the power. And it's not just therapy, it's relationships, it's mentorships. But, some of the therapy gives people the freedom, I think, to be able to speak these things and to think these things. And I think you're right, like, it can be very hard to know this stuff. And
another question I have is, when addiction like drug use or eating issues stem from trauma, what's one easy way caregivers can notice signs early and offer kind of support, really?
It's a way of coping. It's a way of not feeling, is one experience. Or another way he talks about is finding out what the person gets from the experience. But often it's like a numbing experience, or it's a way of not feeling, to put it very simply. So I think one of the biggest things we can do is, if we're noticing people, it's a big thing with addiction, it thrives in shame and isolation. So the biggest thing we can do is help people be connected. So be this through groups. So this can be through church, this can be through AA or NA, it can be through sports, it can be through family. It's just the person being connected is one of the biggest things we can do. And I think this is across mental health, I would say almost for everything, is being more connected, which is easy and hard to do. The other thing is shame. So yes, shame is a really tricky one, and the biggest thing to address shame is to talk about it. So we have to find places, so be it therapy, be it with people we really trust, be it through but both need to be addressed. The isolation needs to be addressed, and the shame needs to be addressed. And of course, earlier the better. If somebody has lost everything and they're 50 and they're coming, seen this many times in rehab, unfortunately, it's a lot harder than if someone's 16. And the amount of times I've heard people say, I wish someone was there when I was 12, when I was 13, when I was 14. I've literally heard this tens of thousands of times, which is heartbreaking. And part of the reason I do what I do, right, is to help there be somebody when people at that point in their life.
Absolutely.
Last question is, Joseph, can you walk us through as your own journey into psychotherapy and mental health leadership?
One of the highest in the world, working at anxiety and depression. Most young people are experiencing this. Social media issues, we're seeing a lot of issues in that space. So I wanted to make a change. So I'm running a conference. So I've just managed today actually to get the last speaker, who is, I would like to say, one of the leading people in suicide and suicide prevention, suicide prevention and hope. And so, and I've got other people coming to speak about social media, which is of course very topical. And she's also saying the social media ban in Australia is not going to work, as well as some other things that are coming through. saying that I don't want to spoil it too much, but really that the platforms are designed to be problematic use. And then we also have Professor Julia Ruckford, who's coming to talk about health and wellbeing in terms of medications and in terms of finding natural ways as well, which is really important. And of course, we have Professor Rebecca Seidemann, who's coming to talk about stress. So on top of that, so again, that's going up from New Zealand. We're talking with all the schools and all sorts of different places to get that out to people. And on top of that, we're also creating therapeutic camps here in New Zealand. We may expand that, but yeah, we're in talks with different agencies for grants and stuff like that. But again, we're really looking at addressing the family, and we're looking at making quite a comprehensive camp that does therapeutic interventions with the whole family. And of course, if we can make this successful, we can run it through all of New Zealand and actually, go quite big on that.
Appreciate you. And if you guys would like to touch base with Joseph and you're with families and you're stuck between trauma or identifying what trauma is with a family unit, please contact Joseph. His network links is below, and you can touch base with him at any point in time. And you never know, if you catch up with him in New Zealand and his summits that he will be having, it could be a genuinely big game changer for people who are going with trauma, who are dealing with trauma people. So it's good to be in full awareness. Thank you so much, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Evolution Mindset. Bye for today.